Well, I just want to thank you all for coming and your caring and your hugs and your help. It's really, really feels wonderful. I have to say that Robert Philip Murray was my life. I don't think anyone could have a better temper. Anybody could have a person like him. We had our own jobs that we each loved and hobbies that we loved, but we did almost everything else together, hosting, cooking, traveling, friends and family were always welcome in our house. We were lucky to have great neighbors. We didn't have any complaints about our neighbors. They were amazing. These photos show many of our adventures. But it's, sorry. Yeah, so as I say, they're going to show a lot of our adventures. But first, we're going to have a video from a very close, good friend of Robert's. Bob is blind. He did have partial vision when he was in university, but he's now blind. And how they managed to meet each other, they were both taking sociology, and Bob was sitting and thought he heard somebody knitting. And so, being curious, he actually went up to the person and found out the person was writing notes in Braille. And if you know anything about it, you have to do that backwards. And so they were to do a project together, and so Bob went and helped Bob. They both had the same name, and they were friends for life, really. So Bob, we'll have Bob's video, show his video, and then continue with the other photos after that.
Hello, Robert, my very best and lifelong friend. In fact, you were the longest friend that I've ever had, way back in university. And I've never kept in touch with anyone to the extent that you and I and Eileen have been friends and kept in touch and followed each other around the country, really. We first met in McGill, probably at that sociology class. It was a French professor. And I remember that's where it all happened, really, because one day we got talking about girls, and I mentioned that Eileen really liked you, and from the United Church Student Christian Fellowship Club, of course. And you said, no, I don't think so. And I said, well, I think she does. And I said, there's only one way to find out. Ask her out on a date. And anyway, the next week we back in class after class or between. I think we took a long class. I think we took a break. And I said, did you ask Eileen out yet? And you said, no, not yet, but I'm thinking I'll do it this weekend. And sure enough, you did. And lo and behold, that's when it all started. So wonderful memories. And of course, we did so much together. We worked on that project in social psych. I think Lambert was the professor there. And then, of course, we both graduated, and you went on to get your PhD and moved to Winnipeg. And I followed you there, took a computer course for a 1-year computer course, University of Manitoba. And we were friends there. You had me to your house several times to get out of the change of residence meals, which I really appreciated. And by the way, you know, food was an important part of our relationship, food and drink. We were all foodies, all three of us. And then my partner, Heather, she was a foodie too. So it all worked out. We were so close, and anyway, it was wonderful for me. All the things you did. I know after I left social work in Montreal, you guys were in Montreal then, and I guess you're working for Bell. Anyway, I lived with you guys for a while till I found a job at the School for the Blind teaching, and that was a wonderful experience. You guys were so good to me, and I know, Eileen, you made some fabulous meals, and when you always were so generous, so very generous, not only with me, but with so many other people also, people from Belize and around the world, really. Extremely generous, just fabulous. But we had a lot of wonderful eating there, and we went out sometimes to restaurants in Old Montreal. Remember those? Those were the great days. And of course, Robert, you introduced me to, I was trying to think of the name of it the other day, and Google helped me with that. You introduced me to Planter's Punch. And I remember the first time I had them, I probably had a couple too many, but I could still walk pretty well in those days, even after 2 or 3 drinks. Maybe 3 is the operative word, or even more. Anyway, that was so great. And then, of course, you and Eileen moved here. Heather and I were here, and you guys moved here from Winnipeg after you retired. And I was so thrilled to hear that. And we kept in touch here, of course, and saw each other quite frequently. And Heather and I would come in to Beach Street and again go out for your birthday and Eileen's birthday, and just other times when we were in town, we'd all get together. So it's been an incredible friendship, long-lasting and genuine, and I think we all felt so comfortable together. Many wonderful conversations. We were all seemed to be interested in the same thing, and weather, I know, was one of your big topics, meteorology, and I enjoyed talking about that. And of course, addiction, we were both interested in that as well, since I, as a social worker, dealt with so many people that had severe addiction issues. Anyway, it's been a long, happy time together, and we're going to miss you a great deal, as I'm sure I know Eileen will, but I am too. It was always so wonderful. We had many chats over the phone too. And Robert, I am very sorry that it's difficult for me to get in to see you today. Heather, of course, as you know, is very ill and in long-term care. And I always go down every evening after dinner and spend an hour to an hour and a half with her. And it's also important that they don't always put her to bed or do things to my satisfaction. Often she's not covered, windows are left open, her water bottle is not near her. So, often it is, but often it isn't. And so I know I don't know how, she really needs me very, very much. She's in pretty bad shape with her Parkinson's. So, but for that, I would be in, but I hate to leave Heather, and do apologize for not being able to make it, but I'm certainly thinking about you, and I thought about you a great deal this week, and quite a little bit about what I'd say in this video as well. So hope that all turned out, and that you'll forgive me. And again, it's been wonderful being your friend, both you and Eileen, your acquaintance, and all the fond memories we had all through our life, starting at McGill and carrying on to the present day. So thank you, and have a good journey, Robert. You certainly deserve it. I hope the afterlife is as generous to you as you have been to the world. Thank you.
I'm Flo. I'm Rob's big sister. I don't call him Bob, his name is Rob. Because I was 3 years older than him, I was permanently assigned to take care of him and protect him from getting lost or from being bullied. He was curious, quiet and studious, but with a good sense of humor. He followed our father around all the time and learned from him skills like fixing things, such as the old radios, clocks, and cameras. They built things from scratch. He and our father constructed a whole new room for me in our basement when I moved home after my graduation. He did well in school and was serious and ambitious. When he graduated from high school, he traveled to Resolute Bay in the Arctic and worked on the ice fields for a few months when he was still a teenager. Can you imagine? In spite of numerous accomplishments and his generosity, he was low-key and unpretentious. His was a life well lived, who made his family proud.
I'm Dave Abrahamson, and I'm a fellow student with Bob at the University of Manitoba. Last night, I put together a page, a little over that, experiences with him. We were students in graduate school, and I arrived there in 1970 from the U.S. I think I had already been there for a year or two, and I eventually ran into Bob. We probably shared some courses together, but I don't remember those courses. I had been teaching at Albion College in Michigan, and I'd gotten an MA from the University of Denver, so I came in with a little bit of different perspective than most of the students. Bob was far more collected, I think, than most, and he seemed quite comfortable with me. His ties were in social psychology, as I remember at the time, and my ties were in developmental psychology. We worked under our degrees with different faculty members. Bob completed his program several years before me, and when I watched him go, I feared I was going to become a professional student. When I finally completed my degree in 1977, it was a relief to me, and as time went on at that period, I taught for several years at the University of Manitoba, mostly, I suspect, because they needed undergrad teachers, and I was a cheap option. That ended in about 1979. Bob and I came into contact again after he had left the University of Manitoba, and he invited me to work with him on what was called the Teledon project at that point. It was sustained by the DOC, Department of Communications in Canada, and it was a precursor to the internet. He and Bob Collins, who was in the Department of call it, programming, I guess, computer science. I had joined Bob, and they had created a simulation on an Apple II, at least I think it was an Apple II at the time. And they'd set it up to check and see how much time delay people tolerated when that page changed. He set me up in this task, did the marketing, I guess, for me, because I ended up also writing a report for the experimental network that had been installed at the time in Headingley, a small, physically isolated town outside of Winnipeg to the west. Bob left me free to carry out my part of the work, and it was really, I think, an enjoyable experience. Bob Collins had a fishing trip, and as I noticed on the films on the wall, there are a lot of fish in those photos, and that's something Bob had done before he and I had gotten together on this trip. The trip was up near the Paw. He had obviously been there before, and I had never driven to the Paw or gone with anybody. And it was like approaching the gates of hell. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's a good distance from Winnipeg, and with the furnaces burning and the red glow in the sky, it's quite impressive as you come into the town. All of the plumbing and everything that connects to the houses is in tubes above ground, I guess because of the serious cold of the winter weather. While I was up there, my wife Mariel got a job offer teaching in Langley, BC, and called me during the fishing trip. I was very disappointed at this call, and it was just at that time where we both finished our schoolwork, and I thought, well, we're now outside the stresses of schooling, maybe we can do something else. She moved to BC to see what it was like, spend a year there as a teacher in Langley, and I spent a year working in Langley's, or she spent a year working in Langley's school system. Her year working in Langley involved deciding whether she wanted to stay or not, because she had been promised to be able to return to her position as a teacher in the west side of Winnipeg. I stayed at our newly bought home at the time, and Teledon had ended, and I was left without employment in a newly purchased house by the two of us, and I was eating fish, because that was all that was in the freezer from that particular fishing trip. I even learned to make fish pizza. Yeah, you're right. While waiting for Mariel to end that experimental year, I found employment on a project with the Manitoba Association of Registered Nurses. I think it's now known by the acronym ARNM. When Mariel came back and decided to move to BC, I had to leave that project, and I put Bob and the woman running the project together. It was a perfect fit for Bob's skills and capabilities. He was up and running the project in no time. The woman who ran that project, I do not remember her name, but she was not an easy individual to work, so I felt somewhat guilty in leaving him in this particular position. Bob never said much about it, so I guess if there were some problems, he either forgave me or forgot about them. I'm not sure. When Mariel and I moved to BC, Bob came at our house out in St. Francis Xavier and helped us move our remaining goods into the U-Haul truck that we used to finish things off. Bob was a generalist in a lot of ways, who could easily wade into the details of statistical analysis. I was more simply the detail person. He seemed to be able to handle and manage people's reactions well, and I suspect it was from his background and personal intelligence. That wasn't a strong skill I had, and it takes energy from me to reach that kind of communication with people. When Bob and Eileen moved to Vancouver, we had some seasonal socializing, and it was all carried by Bob and Eileen. I don't think you ever got to our house. If you did, I don't remember. Did you? Okay. That shows you. I think it's dementia beginning to come. Employment demands, eventually health issues kept us more separate than we might have been. It's too bad we weren't closer in distance. Life also slowed us all down. I valued my moments of interaction, schooling, and work life with Bob. He and Eileen were our friends, separated by distance, and so somehow finding moments of life to share. Life's losses eventually hit us all, having shared challenges and efforts now seem more significant in memory than when they happened. I felt the loss and not being able to help during his last years of health challenges. And I was reminded by his caretaker as we came up the elevator together that was a long time, 13 years of care. That was quite a bit. I hope life's continuing experiences will ride life. Okay, thank you.
I just got to share Bob's subtle sense of humor. So a short story. We were in, Bob was in university at the same time, and I was in second year engineering, and he came to me, he said, I need some help. I need some interviewers. So do you think you could get 3 or 4 of your buddies to do an interview? We'll give you $10 a piece to interview some first year sociology students. So, okay, sure, that sounds like a good deal. So I rounded up 4 guys and we went over and they put us in the room. We interviewed these young girls from first year. And after the interview, we got our $10 and everything. Turns out that the interview was on us. He wanted to see how some crazy engineering students would interview young girls.
So my name is Christine, and Bob and I used to do a lot of exercise. I made him do exercises, and we did a lot of armchair traveling together. I've known him, I knew him for about 10 years, so he endured me that long. But I enjoyed his companionship and just learned his mannerisms, right, over the 10 years. And there was a look that he would give that would definitely be like a no, right? And there's silence actually would mean, okay, give it a try. And there were times when he would be, oh, well, I'd be up for it, but not feeling so great today. And there's definitely the eyes closed and heavy breathing, and I'm like, okay, it's time to move on. That's his cue that that's not for him, right? But throughout the years, he was just always so calm and polite, you know, and so he never once complained to me about his state or his situation. He's had that peace in him, you know. His circle was small but mighty. He had his constants and love of his life, Eileen. I've learned about his friends, a few friends that were close. Knew about Flo a little bit, and also like a dedicated worker and friend in Chona, and also his cousin from PEI who would always send lobster on his birthday. So yeah, I will always remember his hobbies for woodworking and radio, and his love for silence, to just be quiet. So I'll remember Bob in those ways. Thank you.
Anyway, my name is Sid. I got to know Eileen for the past good few years. I don't know how long. And I got to know Bob. He was an amazing gentleman. And you could see whenever you talk to him, his reaction. Smiling, always smiling, and appreciative towards, of course, Eileen and Chona and the rest of the team helping him. So the last I saw him, it was in the hospital, Chona called me, so then he was still, I could say, still in a good shape. And then Eileen was talking to him, the phone was trying to put the phone in his ear. He would respond, with a little smile. That was amazing. But God bless him. It was a great journey, great family.
I'd just like to mention my name is Bruce, and I'm the director of a vintage radio museum in Coquitlam. And about 10 years ago, Bob decided to donate a significant portion of his collection to the Spark Radio Museum, which we have on display. Before that, actually, I didn't unfortunately have that much involvement with him, but he did with a number of the other members, and he was able to, we have a display of vintage equipment which would have been typical of the Titanic equipment that was used on the ship, and it was in a bit of a state of disarray, and Bob took it on himself to organize it, and he created identification cards so that people could understand the equipment that they were looking at. And so it was very much appreciated, and it continues to be a significant asset for the museums. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank. See, I'm crying now. That's what I want to say.
You're allowed.
Okay. I looked after him for so long. I love this guy. And this, I promised her, be nice to me. Because I'm going to look after her too. So anyway, we've been through a lot. He's been through a lot. And I remember the last mile that he gave me was at the hospital. At the very 2 days before he passed. I've been goofing around with him, and I said, you better give me a good smile. That's gonna be a memory for me. And then he gave me a good smile. But he didn't open his eyes. But it was a really good one. And I told him that it's time for you to rest. You've been through a lot. And don't worry about Eileen. I'll be looking, like a hawk. And she'll be okay. As long as I'm here, as long as I've got energy, I will look after her.
You will.
And first of all, and also too, I want to thank you for coming, for support, and for loving Bob and Eileen. And I'm so lucky that I have Eileen and Bob. And I've been with him for, 12, 13 years. For being bad sometimes, fighting with Eileen sometimes. But we've been through a lot. I make sure that they're both okay. They have something to eat that Eileen doesn't like. She'll eat it anyway. And Bob, he never complained. Never. I don't remember anything that he was mad. But sometimes if he doesn't like the food, he just doesn't want to open his mouth. And I said, no dessert. And then he would open his mouth. But anyway, yeah, that's Bob. He's the best guy ever. I can never, or I'll never find anybody like Bob. Like him. as far as I remember, I looked after anyone like him. He is the best ever. So, yes, I love you, Bob. We'll miss you.
God bless you.
I have to say something. I wasn't going to speak because I have jet lag, but I spent the last few days of Bob's life visiting him and watching what that woman did for him. And I just can say we should all be so lucky to have a Chona looking after us. I just want to say that. And that Eileen made a very good choice in picking Chona to look after Bob.
Yes.
Chona.
I'd like to say something about those bleep radios. I'm glad to meet you, and congratulations on having them. They sat in my house. Bob came out one summer day with a truck full of them. They were in my bedrooms. They weren't in the bathrooms, fortunately. They were in the living room. They were in the dining room. They were in the shop. They were in the family room. I even had so many, I think they ended up outside in what ultimately became a great big doghouse. I never turned them on, but I'm sure I heard Russian coming out of one of them. It was quite an experience. So I can appreciate the amount of work Bob went through to create all of those
He restored-
restorations.
Yes, he restored so many of the radios.
Yeah. And you know, some of them went to the U.S. as well.
They went
Bellingham.
to the, I don't know if the Bellingham Museum has it, but the Canadian Museum of Science and Technology received
Oh,
the bulk of his
all right.
radios.